see we've got 25 people on here at the minute, and there'll probably be some more joining, but we'll be making all these sessions available at a later date to all the members to listen back at their pleasure to some of this. So first of all, just welcome everybody, and this is the second or third of our member sessions. The first session we talked about Sarah, who's on there. Sarah hosted a session talking to the folks who took part in the Eco Challenge out in Fiji. And 2 weeks ago, Laura gave us a yoga class, and this is the second of our, as we call them, first Wednesday of the month sessions, where we try to do something. We try to get some experts in the various fields to come on and to share some information with us and stuff that we think might be beneficial to some of the members, and give some of the members an opportunity to maybe to ask some questions and to learn a few things and all that. So this evening's session, and just before we start, as Susan said, like I said, it's been recorded, so just once everybody's okay with that. So again, thanks everybody for joining the new organisation. The committee was elected a little while back, so I am the solo adventure racing officer on the committee. So we distinguish between the two types of adventure racing. So the solo adventure racing are typically the Quest, the Gale Force, where people are competing on an individual basis, and the TAR, the team adventure racing, is more where you have a team-based event, such as DAR 12, DAR 24, the TARE events, Shamrock events, the Beast, that type of thing. So tonight's session, we're going to talk to four adventure racers, all at the very pointy end of the pyramid, all up at the top, the best in the game. We have Ellen Vitting and Shaun Stewart, who are typically would take part in the expert, which are the longer events, as well as a host of other activities and sports that they do. And we have Martina Dunne and Anthony McGibney, who typically will take part in the sport, or the slightly shorter but lightning fast events that happen there as well. So I suppose the format of this is kind of just a general chat with the folks here, just to get a little bit of background from them, and just talk to them a little bit about, I suppose, how they started in adventure racing, kind of what their backgrounds and that were, and we'll kind of go on from there. So I suppose, Ellen, your internet connection is bad, so we'll start with you while you're on there. So would you maybe just tell us a little quick bit about yourself? So how did you get into adventure racing, and kind of what was your background, and
yes. So I suppose when I was young, I didn't really play any sports. The first kind of sport I was really into was rowing. When I was 18, I joined the local rowing club in Templenoe, and I was all coastal rowing. And I did that for a few years, and I wasn't really into any other sports. College, then I started doing a bit of kickboxing, and I tried a lot of the martial arts, actually. I was kind of into all that. And what happened then is, third year college, I went away to Spain. And I think I was a bit homesick, so I kind of took up running was kind of my outlet, and I started walking and running a lot. By the end of the year, I was running every day, an hour or 2 hours. So I came home then and signed up for my first marathon 2 months later, and somehow fell into triathlon because someone gave me an entry, and I thought, why not? So triathlon then became a big thing from kind of the age of 20 onwards. For a few years, I just did loads of triathlons. And then probably 7 years ago, someone mentioned Killarney Adventure Race to me, and I just said I'd give it a go. I said, geez, how hard can it be? It's bike, run, and a bit of paddling. So I was like, my rowing background will stand to me. So yeah, I kind of was in for a bit of a shock, because I suppose in triathlon, I'd never allow myself to walk in the run. And I remember crawling up Mangerton and being like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And it was just, I felt like it was such an achievement finishing it. And I was just absolutely on cloud nine after it. I just thought, this is the best thing ever. And that was the start of it, really. I kind of kept going with the triathlon and tried to do 1 or 2 adventure races every year, early season, late season. And it was last year was probably the first year where I actually said I'd race the series and kind of concentrate more on adventure racing rather than triathlon. So and in the meantime kind of gotten into a bit of trail running and ultra running and all that as well.
So it all kind of spawns off. And on the that was the first thing. So was the drawback to it like the love of the challenge, being out in the mountains and that, or all the people running by you, that you did it bring out the competitiveness, or was it more initially of a love of to be outdoors kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's more a love of the outdoors. When I first said I'd take part, I think I wasn't really thinking about racing it. Well, I said to myself, oh, I'll just do it for fun. And then the natural competitiveness took over, and I was, looking how far they're ahead, trying to calculate times when they're coming down the mountains. And I ended up passing Fiona Mead just at the bottom of Torque, and just tore the last bike into the finish and managed to finish second. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not so bad at this. So just like the adventure racing has brought me like to amazing places. It's just it's just so different to triathlon, and you get to see so much more. It's just, it has so much more than just racing,
Yeah. Okay. Right, we'll be back to you in a second. Shaun, what about yourself?
Yeah, I was just looking back here actually to look back and see when I first had my first adventure race. I suppose I would have played football and that kind of as a young fella, and probably around 21, 22, I was looking to do some more individual stuff as opposed to team sports. And I started cycling to a fairly good level. Would have got to kind of A1 standard, and I rode the Ross a couple of times, and probably got my full of the bike then. And I think it was 2011 I did my first adventure race, which was Sea to Summit. And give it a good go. I think I was fourth the first year I did it. So then I kind of got the bug after that. I would have done kind of a few local races. The Coastal Challenge used to be up here. Boyd Robinson used to organise a very good race here locally. So I used to aim for that every summer. And then from that, I kind of progressed on to doing Sea to Summit every year. And then I would target other ones. So I suppose really only started to take it seriously around 2017, 2018. And I would have kind of really put in a bit of effort and proper training towards it, mixing my running, my biking, and a small bit of kayaking. I suppose on top of that, then I started doing a lot of kind of ultra trail races and that. So it was 2014, I did the OCC over in France, and since that I've kind of built up into maybe the kind of 150k bracket. So I'm kind of trying to juggle more of the long ultra runs with some of the shorter adventure races, and also trying then maybe to get multi-day race and maybe like the Beast or something every year as well. So look, at adventure racing is great. It's a variety that I like most, I suppose, because if you're cycling, it's just pure bike, and if you're training for a marathon, it's all running. At least with adventure racing, you can mix it up, and it kind of is probably better for preventing injuries as well. And you're just a more rounded athlete, I suppose, by doing all the different disciplines. That's kind of where I came from, really.
And as you just alluded to there, you've done some of the multi-day stuff and the team stuff as well, like the Beast and all that. So I'll be coming back to that in a little while to talk more about that. But come back to that. Martina, what about yourself? Just give us a bit of background.
Well, like I come from a horsey background, so we weren't really sporting up. We did like horse riding, so we did show jumping, dressage, and all that. But like the horse does all the work. You just effectively sit there. And then when I finished school, I started playing rugby, and I absolutely loved it. And I went away. I lived out in New Zealand for a year, and I really got into my running over there. And when I came back, I decided to retrain as a PT. So my present to myself for finishing my exams was an entry into Killarney Adventure Race, which is where Ellen started. So it's quite funny. But I did the sport. I didn't do the expert. Like I was like, I'm not going up Mangerton. I'll do the little one. And just really enjoyed it. I was cycling. I used to commute every day on a bike in Dublin, and I used that for the race. It was just an absolute experience, and the atmosphere afterwards and everything. And I think it was a year then before I did my next adventure race, which was Gale Force Dublin. And I remember, like, you cycle up this lane and suddenly you're in a farmyard and lads are carrying bikes and everything, and I was still riding the commuting bike, so I was just like, sure, this is grand, like on it goes through the old mud. But I think last year was my first year really kind of seriously doing a number of races and trying to really better myself as an athlete. So upgraded the bike and sort of focused sort of a little bit more consistently on the training. I was based sort of in Kimmage, so it was ideal. The mountains the Dublin mountains were a stone's throw away. And then I got tons of help from the guys from Off the Bloom as well, doing Sunday runs up in Kennedy with them. So it was really good.
Okay. Anthony, how about yourself?
Yeah, I suppose for me, when I was younger, I just played football basically up until minor level. I never went on and done senior, and I took a few years out, and then I decided maybe I'd try my hand at the football again. So I went back and I played a bit of junior B football. I then decided, well, I figured out I was no good at that, so I ended up buying a bike and done a local sport heath, which Pierce West, then he done See the Summit every year, so he did. So he asked me would I be interested in doing See the Summit, so I said that's about 5 years ago now, so I said I'd do it anyway. So a couple of us did it. Not too competitive for myself anyway, but I got the bug, as the saying goes, after that. Like, so I don't See the Summit basically ever since the sport one. I've never moved up into the expert category now at all. So that was really all, you know. It was See the Summit every year, and then we decided we do Glendalough this past few years in April. It's usually on, so give that a go. 2018 I ran we done a team, the race in Donegal. I'm sure Shaun's familiar with that. We finished second in that as part of a team, and I done the Dublin Marathon the same year as well. So that's really all. And then last year I done the whole series, decided to do the whole series. It kind of just happened. I signed up for it and I just went for it after that, and it went okay. As I say, always things can always go better, but hopefully when it starts again.
When it all starts again, everybody will be flying on it. So I suppose the one thing that's kind of popping out from even talking to the four of you is that you were all doing kind of other stuff, and you all kind of fell into this, either in Killarney or Westport. Seems to be I think we did a poll across the country there, the two that people kind of fall into on it. And you've all kind of I suppose evolved from the first one, where it's the rude awakening going up the hill, to, you know, actually focusing, I suppose, a little bit more on it, and getting to the level that you're at now on it. So I suppose, in Ellen, I suppose, how do you approach the whole year? So do you take things do you look at the start of the year and say, okay, I'm going to do this, this and this, and build a training plan around it? Or do you just, are you running and doing triathlons and then decide to pick one here and there? Or how do you approach the year, or how do you approach the training?
So I kind of used to do a mix of it. So I pick kind of the races that I absolutely didn't want to miss. So kind of my key races. There's a number of races, triathlon, adventure races, like Killarney Adventure Race. Since my first race, except the time I was pregnant, I've done it every year, and I wouldn't miss it for any other race. So I kind of pick the key races. Then I end up adding more, and then I do a few local kind of things that pop up. So I end up with quite a lot. This year I was actually very organized. I had a big planner and I had it all lined up and ready to go. But it wasn't to be this year. But usually it's kind of, I kind of pick the key triathlon adventure races, and then I end up doing stuff around it, that kind of way. So
and
I don't really plan training around, like I just try and race and recover all summer, really.
Like Trim wouldn't be renowned for its mountains out there now. So how do you how do you deal with that, or what do you target other events, or do you do weekend trips, or like I suppose you have the hill of Tara, but it's only at the road, but realistically,
it's a hill, yeah.
you need to travel on it. So like you say, with a family and all that, like it can't be easy to find mountains. So how do you, I suppose, juggle some of that?
Other years I wouldn't have that much. I try and get the odd spin to the weekend. Maybe in winter when there's less races, try and go to the Wicklow Mountains or up towards the Mournes. This year is the first year where I've done a good bit of mountain running because there's been no races, and there's a group of lads here that are really into mountain running, and the four of us went off nearly every weekend this summer and ran either in the Mournes or the Wicklow Mountains, and that's like, I've nothing now to race for, but hopefully it'll stand to me next year. But it's probably the first year I've actually trained consistently on mountains. Other than that, I just bring it on the day and die for days after. So.
And you said if there was a group, do you find it easier to train with a bunch of people, or would you be a lone trainer, or how do you?
Well, I train a lot alone because I'm just so busy with kids and work and everything, and it's kind of hard sometimes to organize the training schedule, and it's really just when there's a gap in my day I do my training. So it can be really hard to kind of nail down training times. I do try my best to make every Tuesday and Thursday kind of speed sessions with Trim AC, and like I've great friends in the club, and that's where I met the lads that are into the mountain running as well. And I think for the long mountain runs, it's great to have someone along, because first of all, I don't really know where I'm going and my navigation is terrible. So I rather have someone with me that knows where they're going. And just like if you're up there for hours, it's a real treat, it's a day trip and you're having a laugh and a coffee after. It's, you can make a really fun day out of it. It's not hardship. It's this year anyway, it was the only thing I was really looking forward to every weekend.
Yeah, actually, we bumped into you down outside Glendalough on one of the hills one of the days there.
Oh yeah, on the bikes. Yeah, that was the lads. That's my group.
Yeah, it seems, myself and Paddy there, it seemed like a great idea to mountain bike the Wicklow way, but won't be doing that again.
No.
Shaun, what about yourself? How do you approach the year in training wise, or do you use, I suppose, events to complement adventure racing, or are they just all completely individual, or how do you approach it?
Yeah, it's very much I pick A races and build my rest of my year around that. So like last year I'm just looking at here, I had the Art O'Neill in January. I was supposed to do the race in March. I was supposed to go to France for Maxi race in May, UTMB in August, and then the Mourne Skyline. So like everything was kind of spaced out, maybe 8 to 10 weeks apart. So it meant that I could get a couple of weeks recovery, get maybe 5-6 week training block and a week's taper leading into events. So that's kind of how I'd planned last year or this year, but obviously nothing much went ahead. So yeah, I suppose it's important to target certain events, especially like, when I go to events, I kind of go there to either try and win them or finish as high as possible. So I want to be going in as fresh and as strong as possible. You can over race too and just end up getting average results. So I'd rather pick certain events and try and win them. Obviously, the likes of the big ultra trail races, you're just going there to do your best, really. I mean, top 50 is a good result over in some of those races. But I guess any of the adventure racing here, you're targeting a podium anyway, and you're structuring your training around that. And your training, it varies at different times of the year, obviously. So, I mean, even now this time of the year, it's much more aerobic, kind of low intensity stuff. Still do the odd hard session, maybe once a week. But the majority is just laying down the kind of the founds for January, February, when I maybe start to put in some more speed sessions and kind of more anaerobic stuff. So yeah, I kind of at different times, again, different events as well. I mean, if I'm preparing for an ultra trail, it's mostly running. So it could be 70% running, 30% biking and other sports. If you're training for the likes of the race, then quite a lot of biking, but you're probably running 80 to 100k a week as well. And then obviously doing 2 or 3 strength sessions, which is, I think people overlook. I think the importance of strength is massive. I was thinking about this today, and like 2018 was probably one of my best years, and I won a lot of the national races. And like if somebody asked me what training did I do in the winter time, well, I pulled a tire for most of December and January because I was getting ready for a ski expedition. So like I was doing very little high intensity stuff. It was all just basically hiking, weighted hiking, strength work really. And I think that kind of helped me. Then I was a bit fresher when racing did come around. I was able then to really throw on the hard sessions because I was fresh and I was able to take it. So I think it's very much depends on the time of year, the type of race that you're looking for. And also, like if you're getting coached, it's probably a good idea for some people if you're not in tune with your body and know what you're at. So like I do dabble with a bit of coaching at times. A couple of guys help me out. Just it's more to keep me from getting injured and getting maybe burnt out. Maybe hold you back a little bit. And I think the trap I fell into when I was training a lot, and I suppose a lot of people probably relate to it, is that a lot of my easy sessions are too hard and my hard sessions aren't hard enough, So that's one thing I found last year when I was being coached. Like my speed sessions were horrible. I actually, I nearly lose sleep thinking about them for the next morning. And then obviously my easy sessions, I made sure that they were really easy, just nice trot along, steady pace. So it's trying to kind of apply that to my sessions so that I'm getting the most out of them too, So yeah, like next year, 21, I suppose nobody knows really the lay of the land with COVID and stuff, but I am already planning kind of 6 months kind of blocks, and we'll know then hopefully in January if things are going to start to play out,
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to ask you all later on. Like, given that we don't really know what events or what's going to be happening, how are you structuring your winter training? Is it just like blocks of base work, or is it targeted for events that may or may not happen? Or
yeah, I think you look at it. For me, I know I need to be doing it. I'm better doing some sort of training than not. So at the minute I'm still training good. Like I'm probably still doing 12 to 15 hours a week. That's across running and biking and some strength work. So I suppose I'm leaving myself in a position that if an event does come up, I'm only 6 weeks away from being sharp for it. So I'm leaving myself in good enough condition that I can easily jump into an event should it come up. So yeah, it's quite hard to plan anything. And I suppose that was probably the toughest part of this year, Patrick, was you were preparing yourself and you were getting mentally ready, and then 2 weeks out, then the event was cancelled, and you're back to stage one again, and you went through the whole process again for 2 months later, and the same thing happened. So it was mentally draining this year.
Okay, thanks, Martina. I suppose, how do you approach the training or structure the training again? Is it a yearly basis? And I know between work and everything, it can be hard at times to plan out for the whole year. So I suppose, how do you approach it?
Well, like I wouldn't really have a structure, to be brutally honest. I know Ultimate Conditioning, Bernard Smith did a Quest 12-week or 6-week thing. I don't know. I had that when I first started, and often I'd refer back to that. Just to see, because it's great to give you the bit of like variety, because I find what you can end up doing is just doing the same sessions over and over again. So like you get kind of stuck in this, you're not really progressing and you're not really pushing yourself, because all you're doing is like, an easy 5-mile run, like, which is only 8K or whatever, but it's on a flat road. There's no tempo, there's no pace, there's no anaerobic work. So it's great for base building, that sort of stuff, but like it's not really great for, like Shaun says, sharpening you up for races. So 2019 I would have done a mix of everything. So I had like my set days where, like, I used to go down, and they had a walk bike in the gym that I was working in, and I used to go down and do sessions on that, and then try and get out on the road then on the road bike on a Sunday, and then try and mix in a couple of runs in between that. And because I'm a PT, like I'm always in a gym, so there's always an opportunity for doing a little bit of strength work. Like, when you're in between clients or classes, you can just do a set of deadlifts or like, some overhead presses. I absolutely love rows, and I think they're really underrated. Like I never practiced practiced in the kayak, like never practiced my paddle. But I'd always be doing like high volume T-Rex rows or ring rows or bent over rows, even single arm stuff. And I think just having a base level of strength really helps you when it comes to the likes of the adventures, and because it's not easy, as in like you need a certain amount of leg strength to even just power hike up a hill. You need a certain amount of leg strength to climb a hill on a bike. And then when you throw the paddle in on top of that as well, you need good strong arms, like in a good strong core. So I suppose like for this year, all I've done is run. I think I've been on the bike maybe 3 or 4 times. I did Kenmare, and I kind of I had a trip to New Zealand cancelled, and I kind of just said, feck it, it wasn't looking good for the sort of the season and the prognosis, and I said I'll just go back doing a bit of athletics training. So that's what I've done, and that follows a very, I suppose, set structures in like your Tuesday, Thursday, like Ellen was saying, is your speed sessions, and a bit of a tempo run on a Saturday, a long run on a Sunday. When we're not in lockdown, I try and do those long runs in the hills, but like, you know, now, and the Midlands isn't known for hills either, so like it's just lots of roads, like. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, when the racing's back, what the training this year has done for me speed wise, you know, and strength wise.
That's one of the things we've kind of seen in the last 2 years really. There's like I'll talk to Anthony about in a second, but there's kind of a group up around Cavan, like that train together. I see Matt Casey's on there from Cork, like in Mallow there's a big group of them that train together. Mayo, they're starting to take off there now. In the Midlands, I know Derek Middleton and the Off the Bloom crew down there have been trying to do some group training and all that. So I know you've taken part, you've been involved with them a little bit. So how do you find the group training? Is it kind of does it add more structure to it, or do you kind of lose the focus or the intensity if you were training on your own? Like Shaun was saying, some of the sessions, you know, your slow sessions have to be slowed down, whatever your 120 heart rate or whatever your slow session is, kind of thing. But if you're in a group, your slow session could be different to Derek's slow session or that. So how does that whole group dynamic work, I suppose?
It is tough, like and this has been a discussion many a Sunday morning on the hills in the sleep rooms. I think the thing is, like if you have a structure, you kind of have to follow your own structure, because if you're running a tempo run on a Saturday and then you go out and you run with a group on a Sunday and it turns out to be a little bit faster than your easier pace, or maybe a lot faster than your easier pace, whatever way you want to look at it, that's 2 hard sessions back to back. And that can actually be quite damaging when we think about recovery wise, because if you're following a sort of athletics thing, or you're trying to get in your speed session come Tuesday, you're really only giving yourself 24 hours to recover there. And you might be just overtraining or overreaching or under recovering a little bit towards that. So I think the thing is having like good communication. Like the lads are brilliant, as in Derek and Simon would be, you know, they'd be faster runners. So what we tend to do is just wait for each other at junctions. So if we're all on a group run, we start and finish together. But like if you're running at a slower pace, that's okay, because like, you know, at the end of the day, it's more social rather than just being out in the hills to see who can run the fastest, you know, 10K or 12K, whatever we're doing. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Anthony, I suppose, like I said, I think you were the only person. You're one of the 2 or 3 people that did every single race in the calendar last year, in the sport calendar on it, and you were improving, a little bit of bad luck, and you would have taken a couple of podium spots there on that. So it wasn't from a lack of training anyway. But there's a good group of you down there in the DB club and that. So I suppose how do you approach training? Like at the start of the year now, would you be looking out and say, okay, I'm going to do every race in the series, or I'm going to try a few runs, or how do you approach it? The men's sport is probably the most competitive category in any of the solo events out there like that. On any given day, there's 10 or 15 people who are of the same level. So I suppose any sort of a training advantage you'd have is crucial.
Well, for myself, like last year, as I say, up until last year, I had only done about 2 races every year. Like, where last year I went and I did the whole full series, but that was because like I just booked it basically at the start of the year, and I went for it's all a learning process basically. You know, as you say there, I had bad luck last year. I had some races where I could have pushed harder in different sections of the course, and you learn all them things after it. You have to be, as they say, you have to be cute. But training wise, like I usually train with my brother most of the time. As I say, when he first started cycling and all, he could only cycle 10k out the road, but he has come on a lot since then. So I train with him nearly all the time. There is a few of us there, like maybe not this year, just with the whole thing and the whole lockdown and everything like that there. It's hard to get into groups and hard to get groups of lads together. So this year it's me and the brother, and that has really been it. For myself, training wise this year, running has been the big thing for me, because I was training towards the Seven Sisters Skyline 25k, which was cancelled. So hill training, done a lot of mountain training for that. Let's see, yeah, that was the main thing earlier on in the year. But ever since then, last year, what I found weakness was basically running. You know, it was letting me down in races. When I come out of, say, the kayak or whatever, I hadn't got the legs to keep that running up. Like, you know, I couldn't stick at that pace, which you do need to, if you're going to be up there competing, as the rest of the dads and lassies know. Like, if you're going to compete, you need to be fit to, after transition, you need to be fit to keep going, you know, because and I felt that was letting me down. So this year I've trained more on running. I've tried to get in the bike during the week as well. I get a long cycle in on a Sunday, most Sundays, thankfully, running wise during the week. And like Shaun and them said there, like, what I'd say is do your easy days easy and your hard days hard. That's what I've learned this past while. Like, before this, I was just going running, and I was running for the sake of it, and I kept doing training the same speed every day over and over again. But I learned with COVID actually helped me there, because I got more of a structure and I could train better, and I structured my training out. So yeah, I feel that that'll help in the long run. As I say, your easy days easy, your hard days hard, and that's really all.
Yeah, and sorry, that's going. So I suppose, Ellen, back to yourself again. So what are you doing over the winter, or what will you do between now and right now? We've no confirmed events for the really at the minute. So what are your plans for next year? Are you going to do a few more races? Or are you going to kind of see what the lie of the land is, or
Yeah,
have you still got the love for the solo events, or would you might try a team event, or what would you like to see happen for 2021?
I will do absolutely anything that's on next year at this stage, so I don't care. I'd love to go back doing some of the adventure races, but I have really got into like mountain running, and so far, fingers crossed, if they go ahead, I'm back in for the Seven Sisters next year, and the Gale Force Skyline run in March, which might be a bit more iffy because it's early in the year. But I would love to go back. I actually did the Beast one year. I think it was my second adventure race. Kind of got landed in that. And
Wow.
I just yeah, I don't know. I don't think these things through. I just kind of go for it. But I absolutely love that. Now the team that I raced with, they'd done it before, but they were kind of racing the shorter version of the course, and I'd love to go back and actually race the full course and try and be one of the kind of top teams there, and really be racing for it. maybe less relaxed 3 days.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you find the difference between the solo stuff and the likes of the beast, the team stuff?
Yeah, I think I probably drove them crazy because like that I'd only done one adventure race before, and other than that it's triathlon, and like transitions and everything in triathlon have to be like so efficient. So I was there, we were getting to checkpoints, I was like, come on, 5 minutes, get your food in, let's go. And they're like, what? Like, I'm changing my socks and I'm doing this, and I'm like, oh my god. I found it really hard to actually slow down to the level you have to for the 3 days.
And how did you find the navigating and all that?
Oh, I can't navigate like
but,
at all. There was a navigator there, like I just follow.
And would that like, you sound like you'd happily do a beast again like that, but would you have any desire to, would say, do some navigation or to try and navigate it, or would you just be happy to be on the team and follow whoever is telling you, okay, we're going this way now for 2 miles and then we're going that way? Or would you have any?
If I had confidence in the person navigating, I'd be happy to just follow. I do think sometimes when there's too many navigators, it can get very confusing as well. But for myself, that is one of my goals for next year, is to actually learn to navigate, even kind of at a basic level, because I think the more kind of mountain running I did this year, the more I realized if I was on my own or if I wanted to do some of those ultra events, a lot of them have navigation in them. Even I'd love to have done the Art O'Neill. I doubt it'll go ahead next year, but I was hoping to try and get into that. I looked at a few kind of multi-day trail races over in Scotland, Wales, and they all seem to need a bit of navigation. So it's definitely something, especially if there isn't much racing next year, that I probably should work on, and to be a nice few days out, and hopefully I'll be a bit more confident but it all depends. Like at the moment we can't really travel anywhere, and like even Meath, like there's nowhere in Meath I can go up the mountains. Like
I know.
There literally isn't. So
up and down Tara. There was a double Everesting done in Tara there a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, Graham. Yeah, I did a few laps with him. But yeah.
Yeah, but
it's not exactly the mountains, so you wouldn't need a map now or anything. So.
Shaun, you've dabbled in the solo and the team stuff. I know you've done the beast before, and I bumped into you down at the Shamrock down in Carlow earlier on the year. So how do you find those, or what do you think? I suppose, you know, they're a different type of race, and they bring a lot more challenges. They're a lot more technical. Like some of the solo stuff is just pure raw speed. You're just running 5k or 10k as fast as you can, and you don't even have time to breathe in it. So the team ones tend to be a little bit different, but they bring their own challenges. So what's your thoughts on that?
So I suppose I've done. I'm no way experienced with team events. I'm actually surprised I got on a team there 2 years ago for the Beast. I have to thank Rachel Nolan for that. But so I suppose my first team event would have been ATIRA back in, was it 16? Myself and London O'Farrell teamed up together. We'd been racing each other the previous year and just in some of the one-day events. And we actually teamed up with a couple from New Zealand. We were led to believe they were quite handy, but I think we soon discovered that we were dragging around too with us, you know. So it was kind of a bad first experience. Just after a couple of days, it just went belly up on us, to be quite honest. So it was a couple of years before then I entered another team event, which was the Beast, and it happened to be in Donegal, so I knew it would have been passing my doorstep. So I got a team together with my brother and Jason and Sharon Black, and we had a really good race. I think we were sitting in third until we had a bad accident, and Sharon got badly injured. So we pulled out. So it was 2-0 for me at that stage, and then the following year, it was Rachel Nolan was putting a team together, and myself and Colin Buckley and Nigel McKiernan. So we had a pretty strong team with good experience, you know. And I had no experience, but I was the workhorse for them. And we had a good outing in that. We finished second overall. Paul Mahan's team put us to the sword, you know. But I think it's a totally different dynamic. The team events, you know, obviously your fitness levels are all different, but you have to accept that going in. and everybody's going to have a bad spell at some stage. So just because you're feeling strong on the first day or even second day, it doesn't mean you're going to be strong at the finish. So I think you just have to kind of pace yourselves and put confidence in the navigators as well. I mean, I'd be a very average navigator, but the likes of Colin and Nigel there had vast experience, and I just left it up to them. So no, I really enjoy the team events. They are totally different. I suppose the multi-day stuff is good because I like the challenge of going through the night, and the next day brings a new challenge, and it's totally different game to the one day. The one day you're going in and you've everything calculated in your head. Your transitions. You have it down to a T. You probably rehearsed coming off the mountain. You've done all the different sections in the run up to the race. Whereas with the beast or the multi-day races, it's unknown until you land there. So it's a totally different type of racing. It's something I definitely would like to do more of. Especially, I suppose everybody's seen Eco this year, and everybody's getting kind of tempted to jump into it. But it's a totally different game altogether. But it's definitely something I would like to get into. But I think it's important that you are with a team that you get on with and that you train with. Just randomly turning up and racing with 3 others that you've never really met, it's a big ask, especially if you want to be competitive. And if you want to enjoy it too, there's nothing worse than being stuck with a team that you're not getting on with. And you have another kind of maybe 40 hours to spend with them. And it does nobody any good, and you don't enjoy it. At the end of the day, you want to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks, Martina. I said you work you were in a gym a lot of the day and all that. So you must see kind of a lot of injuries and all that as well. So how do you think, like for anyone that's dealing with injuries or training with injuries, or how do, in your experience, I suppose, what are your thoughts on that? Do people treat injuries with the respect that they probably should get? And what's the best advice, I suppose, you'd have for people who, they have an event or race coming up in a month's time and they have a little bit of a niggle, or how they might change or structure their training a bit differently?
It's really funny because obviously I do a lot of postnatal training, and not suggesting people here are postnatal, but one of the things we discuss is the athlete brain and how you get a woman to realize that she, stuff has changed, and you have to take a certain amount of time to rehab stuff. And it's the very same with runners. They all have athlete brains, and adventure racers. It's kind of I think as a population we've a higher pain threshold, and we kind of will train through niggles and stuff like that more so than what we should do. The main thing that I think is the mobility aspect of stuff. So I see a lot of people and they come into the gym and they work really hard for an hour, and they're doing sort of multi-joint compound movements, and it's all looking really good. And then or maybe they're cycling everywhere, or they're getting their runs in. But if you think about the sort of modern life where we sit or drive a car or sit in a bus, whatever it is, commute into an office, and maybe you're not even commuting into an office, maybe you're just sitting at a desk now at home, and we end up with tight hips and hamstrings and poor ankle mobility, T-spines that are inflexible and don't move, and then suddenly our diaphragm doesn't expand the way it's meant to. We can't get good decent oxygen in when we are running and training. So I think from a holistic approach, which is that's what I try to focus on with my clients and my own training, you're kind of going from the bottom up. So if your mobility is a bit shite, there's no point hammering up a hill, because you need the ankle mobility, you need the strength then as well from your strength exercises. The likes of, I know Laura had her yoga last week, but the likes of yoga and power yoga, like a really strong flow yoga, is really good for hitting sort of both options there, which be your strength and your flexibility, your mobility. But I think it is something that's neglected in sort of modern life. We kind of think that more is always better, when it's not. And if you have a niggle and there's a race coming up in, say, 4 weeks time or whatever that you want to focus on, I would say pare back the training a little bit. Like you're not going to lose that much. You're not going to gain or lose that much in 4 weeks. And focus on the mobility and getting moving better. And then after the race, you know, you can look at putting in a strength program. Like if it's your hamstring or your glute that's always at you, there's something obviously going on there. It's either an imbalance or it's over tight. So that's where the sort of prehab before and then rehab afterwards is probably the best option.
Okay, thanks. Anthony, for the winter, obviously there's a good club of you down there, and you have the CKR team are relatively nearby as well down there. So I suppose what's your advice or tips for training over the winter? How to keep motivated, or is it looking forward to things that may or may not happen, or is it a bit of local competitiveness, or what's your, I suppose, top couple of bits of advice for the winter for anyone out there?
Yeah, for the winter, from like my advice would be to stay basically consistent. Basically, you know, get the long distance stuff in. Is, you know, slow long distance stuff. Do your own speed walk as well. You know, what you do now is going to stand to you whenever the racing does start back. It could be in 6 months' time, it could be in a year's time, but what you build up now is what it doesn't feel like it now, basically, but what you do now is what's going to stand to you.
In terms of, you know, I suppose gear or that kind of stuff, is there any, obviously put good tires on your bike and all that kind of stuff in it, but any kind of a, you know, stay off the roads, or is there any kind of a thing that you tried that you do differently in the winter, or is there any kind of, you know, tips or advice you'd have around specific winter training as opposed to?
Yeah, well, for myself, like I'm not telling anybody to go out and buy a turbo. You can buy any cheap, expensive spinning turbo basically for inside. You know, go buy yourself one of them. You know, that'll take you over if the weather's bad outside. Like, you know, there's plenty of things to do. There's plenty of options. You know, you get yourself a plan. You have Swift there either. You know, there's all different options like that. I'm not telling any, as I say, to buy something expensive or go out. You know, I started off like, I bought an expensive turbo this year, but like I had it up until now, I had a turbo at €80 from Aldi, you know, so the likes of that there, like, you know, turbo, set yourselves goals basically, you know, for running wise, like, for example, I hope to get it mightn't happen, but I hope to get a 10K personal best like in 2 weeks' time. That's what I've done this year, basically, just set my own goals. There's no racing there. So when the racing comes back, you'll still be in shape if you're setting your own goals, basically.
Thanks. I said we've only 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to have a quick look at any couple of questions that are out there, and just to see if anybody's anything specific out there. I said hopefully we'll see a return of the beast or something next year. I see Ivan's on there, so, you know, hopefully things will have settled down a little bit in the world by then. But I suppose one of the questions coming in is, I think it's from Derek there, is how do people feel about, you know, if races have to be adopted or modified a little bit next year? So see the summit, 2,800 people doing events, 2,800 bikes down there, and people trying to drop them in and out, mass starts and everything like that. I don't know if we'll see something like that in it. So, you know, if events were modified, that they were less and space starts, and a bit like the way the Ironman started this year, like a couple of minutes apart and all that. So how would you feel about that? Would it take the competitiveness out of it, or how would you feel? What would be your, I suppose, your feedback to events and that? Anyone, the four of you that wants to jump in there can jump in.
I think racing is racing. Like, I would literally race an old man down a bog now at this stage, like, just for a bit of competitiveness. So like, if we're racing and it's safe, like, sure, why not? It will sort of make it tricky. Like, I do Ellen's trick as well. I count the women coming down the mountain, so then I know how much it, like, you know, how much I have to push myself. So it will make it tricky that way if you're going off at sort of wave starts or whatever. But I think it won't take from the racing, because you'll still be out among the mountains. You'll still be challenging yourself to beat your own times and to push yourself beyond your own limits.
I think, Patrick, it probably would cater better for the likes of a beast event, where the numbers are a bit smaller and you're so isolated, go hours in the beast without beating anybody else. Whereas the likes of a Sea to Summit where you have thousands of people and it's just so crammed, it's probably not going to happen. Even if you break it into waves of 50, possibly, but I think the likes of a long multi-day event will be more realistic next year. So hopefully, even if you're listening, you'll get one together first.
Yeah.
I think even the smaller. I think we saw with the Shamrock this year. There was 30 teams of 2 in it, and we started, was it 30 seconds or half a minute apart, whatever it was, and over the course of 8 hours of that, probably 30 seconds isn't going to make a.
And I think people, Patrick, are happy to adapt to that, because everybody has to realise that it's not going to be like it was last year, possibly for the next 2 or 3 years. So people are willing to adapt to maybe wave starts or even individual starts at 30-second intervals or whatever it is.
They are, but I suppose in the shorter races, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, Shaun. Like a lot of people, are you racing the course or are you racing the people on it? So you're.
Yeah, well, in that case, you're very much racing your competitors, and
I think so,
you want to be with them or on their wheel or battling it out head to head. Where otherwise it's a time trial, So it's every man to himself or lady to himself. So. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, that one, if the races do start back in that format.
Okay. Ellen, any tips for anybody for training before we finish up?
Well, I find it great having like groups of friends to train with, especially the long stuff. Just the bit of company and you're kind of motivating each other. Also for the speed stuff is another session that I find really hard to do on my own. I do them on my own, but I just enjoy them a lot more when they're with friends. And I think if you're new to a sport, linking in with the club, and it's a great way to make friends as well. Like linking in with the club, getting kind of your level of runners that you can go out and do your training together with, really helps. For me personally, I find it important to know, I suppose, what I'm targeting for as well. If there's a target race or a specific new type of event or something that I'm training for, to kind of motivate me to do my session, so that I kind of know why I'm doing a session. So I like to kind of know like, okay, I'm doing these hill reps because I have a mountain race coming up or whatever. So kind of just giving a bit of meaning to training. But my number one thing, especially this year, was training with friends and just having people there that are like-minded, that you can have a laugh with and also work hard.
Thanks. Martina, any last words of advice for anybody for the training?
I think Anthony's already touched on it, but that whole consistency thing, like I see it 10 times over in the gym. You come in, you go like hard out the first day, you're sore as a boil, you won't come back for 3 days. Like, you're better off ticking along slowly and building up your mileage from an injury standpoint, a motivation standpoint, and just general health. It's the consistency. It's just keep going. And even over the winter, I know the days are shorter and the weather's a bit shittier, but even if you cut back on your training, say if you have been doing 6 days a week, if you go back to 4, but you're consistently doing 4, you're better off than having stopped completely over December and January and then trying to get yourself in gear for early races.
Okay, thanks for that. So I think we've like 3 minutes left on that. So just a quick check. Paddy, is there anything else urgent that came from the floor before we finish up?
Not that I can see there, but just a question for myself, probably. Just between each of us, like, what's your favorite discipline and why? Like, possibly kind of where you came from, or what do you like in particular?
Anthony, start with you.
Me?
Bike.
Right.
My bike is the favourite, being honest. That's definitely what I feel is my strongest point. But this year, I feel the running, I'm starting to like the running a lot, because it's not that it's handier, but it's handier to come home. If I'm home from work, like, you you throw on your shorts, throw on your hat, gloves out the door. Where if you're getting ready to go out on the bike, it's a long. So you're nearly a half an hour getting ready, putting on different gear, shoes, and everything before you even go out. Where you have a run done before you have, and you feel like if you do, you nearly have to do 2 to 3 hours on the bike. Where a good session, 40 minutes to an hour running, is very helpful, I find.
Ellen, Martina, anybody?
So in a race is different to training, because I absolutely love running just as training. So it's my sanity is being able to run, and like I do loads of junk miles just to get out. I just love going for a run for no reason other than just to run. But it's probably my weakest discipline in races, in both adventure racing and triathlon. So in races, I actually nearly prefer the bike, because it's where I can put in the biggest amount of effort and get the most return out of. Whereas the run, I'm always looking over my shoulder. But I do in adventure racing, I do love the downhill running. I absolutely love running down the hill, just the freedom of it and just letting go and hoping not to fall. But on a day-to-day basis, definitely running is by far my favorite.
Martina?
I'd probably be the running as well. I recently bought a stand-up paddleboard as a kind of substitute for kayaking. So we'll see how that goes. I'd say that could be fairly class now as well. I do like the kayak when it comes to the adventure racing. Now it's a splash and dash for the shorter stuff. You're probably less than 10 minutes or thereabouts in. But there's just something about being on or near water is very, like, in the absolute madness of a short adventure race. Like that 10 minutes in the kayak is just a little bit of downtime. It's a little bit of a breather. You know?
Cools you down a bit as well, for sure.
Yeah.
Shaun, last word to you.
Well, for me, I suppose it's the mountains, like the mountain running, and like Crowpatrick every year is a highlight. I did Scar a few years back, and and Dingle with Mount Brandon. Like some of them runs are spectacular, and the really technical downhills. It's madness when you think about it, how fast you come down the mountains. But like I suppose that's kind of why you do it. You're on the edge, and yes, I enjoy the bike, and probably when I'm training and I have time, there's no pressure on me. The bike it's class. You just get out for a couple of hours. But no, in the races, I probably target the technical downhills to try and shake a few lads off, or try and hold on to Killian Heary and these guys. So that would be my favorite discipline, definitely in the shorter one-day races.
Good. Well, we're out of time, folks. So thanks a million for your time and for sharing all that with us. Hopefully, everyone that was on here found it interesting and useful. I know I did. And like I said, we'll make this available to the general members and all that over the next couple of weeks. But really appreciate your time, guys. It's great to get the insight into. Like I said, you're all four at the top of the game, and it's great to see it. And hopefully next year we'll have some events to actually see you all competing in, and I'll see you at the start, and half an hour after you finished, I may be still coming in, but we might see. But listen, thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate it. And like I said, appreciate the support, and thanks. And yeah, thanks.
No problem.
Cheers, guys. Thanks
everyone.
Good
all the best. Thanks again. Bye. That
was great.
Susan, you're back.
I'm here. I've been here all the time. It was excellent, wasn't it?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was. We probably could have gone for another bit. I did a list of questions to go on through, but I said some things kind of went on a little bit longer. But I thought it was good, and
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.